Hey robot makers, hope you're having a good day so far. So do you want to measure air quality and general environmental things using a Raspberry Pi Zero? Then this is the show for you. So we will be reviewing the Pimoroni Enviro Hat, and as a bonus we'll also be having a sneak peek at BurgerBot. So stay tuned if you want to watch what that's all about. So let's dive straight in. My name's Kevin. Come with me as we build robots, bring them to life with code, and have a whole load of fun along the way. Okay, let's get over to our keynote, which I probably not got in the right place yet. That was a bit of a foobar. Let me just get that right. I've got like a little overlay that I have to just move things about in the window. You don't normally see this. Things normally just work perfectly. There we go. Right, pretend you didn't see that. So yes, session goals for this week. So we're going to have a review of the Pimoroni Enviro Hat. And we're also going to have a sneak peek at the BurgerBot, which is something I've been working on, is on my desk next to me. So we're going to have a look at what the Environment Plus overview is. We're going to have a look at some of the features, have a look at the Python library and have a demo of some of the code, some of the examples that are on there. We're going to have a look at the citizen signs and talk about the development of this particular sensor board. And we'll also be looking at the stand which I've created for this as well. Works with other Zero Hat projects too. So I've got this on the Grow Hat as well in my kitchen. So we'll have a look at that. It's a really great design, really nice and simple. We'll have a look in Fusion 360 at that stand and also the BurgerBot. We'll have a demo. I'll have a look at some of the code, and then we will also have a look at the BurgerBot, which I've promised. So the Enviro Plus, let's have a look at what this is all about. So I've got it next to me running at the moment. So this has a whole bunch of environmental sensors, some really cool features I didn't know you could get actually. So there is a light and proximity sensor. So the idea there is it can measure ambient light levels in the particular room or environment where you are, but also if you put your hand near it, you can actually sense that and you can make things happen. So you could make, say, the screen could be off, and if you put your hand near it, the screen comes on to life, for example. That's something I'm looking to do with my particular Enviro Hat. It has a noise sensor, so it's a bit like a microphone. It's a MEMS microphone. It's like a really, really small solid state microphone, and that can measure ambient sound levels. So you can see is too much noise going on in the environment. A bit like if you've got an Apple Watch and it'll say you're in a loud environment. We can measure and track the sound levels. It has a gas sensor. This can measure all kinds of gases like CO2 and ammonium and so on. And so this is the MIC 6814 chip, which is a gas sensor. There's also a particulate sensor. So that little thing on the screen there, that's blue and has like a little fan grill on it, that can measure particles, different types of particles, large, medium and small particles, and we're going to have a look at the kind of data that can provide us. We also have the good old BME 280, which is a temperature, pressure, humidity sensor. It can measure all those three things. Makes it very easy to grab them and put them on something like Grafana, which we'll have a look at shortly. You do need a Raspberry Pi Zero for all these projects, or a Raspberry Pi probably anything that's got the 40-pin head or above will be fine. And it also has on there a 0.96-inch colour LCD display, so it's 160 by 80. It's plenty of space to put some nice little graphics and graphs and charts and things just on the thing, so you know it's actually working and taking readings and whatnot. So the Python library, there's a really great Python library. I mean, what would you expect from Pimoroni? They have some really good functions in there, making it really easy to customize and expand and make it your own. So rather than seeing this as like it's a product you buy off the shelf and it does exactly what it says on the tin, you can do so much more with this. You can customize this. You can mix and use these things in all kinds of ways. So you can see on there, there's all kinds of extra headers on there. So there's an ADC, I2C, and basically you can break out and do whatever you want with those headers too, so it's really quite expandable. You can also create your own user interface or borrow one. So I love the user interface on the Grow Hat, so I could very easily bring across some of the assets from that and have them display on here. Now this one doesn't have any buttons. That's the only critique I would probably give of this board, so you can't like progress the user interface, but this is more of like a passive monitoring thing, so it's probably designed just with that in mind. And what you can do, and there is a built-in example in the library, you can send data to an MQTT broker. Now that's what I've used on the weather station, which I have just outside the room. So that has like an anemometer, is it called, a wind direction, and it also has a rain sensor, and then inside it has all these sort of BME MQTT chip things, so it can do pressure, it can do temperature and humidity. And this can take it so much further, so we can blend those two things together, just taking readings using MQTT, Node-RED, Grafana and InfluxDB. We'll have a look at that in a demo shortly. So this was actually developed with the University of Sheffield, which is where Pimoroni are actually based, and they contribute real-time data with projects like I think that's called Luftdaten, and that's like across the entire EU region, UK as well in there. In fact, it's a global thing, but when I looked at the map data, it's mostly European data. I think there's a few in the US, but it's mostly an EU project, I guess. And what you can see in there is the quality of air in particular, and they've got these little hexagons in a particular area. So I can send my data to this project and add to this picture and show what the air quality is like. So then they can see, you know, like say a really big urban conurbation like London or Manchester, Birmingham, wherever. And you can see the air quality get poorer and poorer towards the centre as there's lots of vehicles all sort of coming into the centre. You might also see pollution near anything that has lots of particulates, so things that are burning things, you know, power stations, things like that. So it'll be interesting to see how this contributes. So one of the really cool things about this particular hat is that little blue sensor, this particulate matter sensor, PM sensor, and if you think about these particles, they are really, really tiny particles, and they're a mixture of size and types. So things like dust, pollen, mold spores, smoke particles, organic particles, metal ions, and so much more. Because they're different sizes, we can filter them. We can run them through, imagine like a cone-shaped filter, and you can look at various different sizes of them. You can then count them as they're going through, and that's essentially what this sensor does. It's counting the different sizes of particles, and then we can track them as data, so we can see small things and large things. So it measures it by size. That's exactly what this PM sensor does. Now, one of the things I thought when I was putting this together, and I was also putting the Grow Hat together, was we need some way of sort of displaying this rather than it just being sort of loosely just on the desk or on a drawer or something. I thought, I want to present this information in a nice way. So I thought what I'll do is I'll just knock up a stand. So I've got my little orange book of awesomeness, and I drafted up what I wanted to do in Fusion 360. So I thought I want it to be sort of an angular sort of brackety stand thing, so you can have the display at a particular angle, and you can parametrically change the measurements of this. So you could have a Raspberry Pi Zero on there or whatever you like, and it just requires a couple of M25 screws, some machine screws to hold the Zero in place, and the hat can go on top. Now the other thing I did when I was looking at this was just make sure that the cable that goes in to power it has got plenty of space, so that when the cable bends away, it's not sort of flipping up the stand, because these stands are quite light. So it works great with the Grow hats, the Enviro hats. I was just showing before, and the countdown timer. There's also like the automation hat. Basically anything that's got a display on it is ideal to be used with this stand. So I've given the world this stand for free. If you go to kevsrobots.com, you will find a little article about this, how to print it, and some instructions on how to get the files. So all the files are on there for free. So there's space underneath this particular stand for the particulate sensor. You can see it's just underneath the actual display there, and like I said, it's got the correct bend radius for the cable. It's really light and quick to print, so you just need to sort of print it on its face. Just the blog article covers all that kind of stuff off. So here's an example in my kitchen where I've got the Grow Hat Mini, and you can see there some of the sensors. I think I've got two or three plugged in there, and they've got all the sort of water measurements going on. So again, keeps it away from the water, and has plenty of lot of space for the cables and whatnot to sort of go from the hat. It's tilted for an optimum viewing angle, so I've purposely put that at an angle that's easy to sort of view on the screen. Sometimes these are not IPS sort of in-plane switching screens, so you know you need a good viewing angle on them. I mean, they're pretty good screens anyway. Actually, I'm looking at this one from all kinds of angles, and it's really, really clear. And it's got the 4 raised mount points, so it sort of raises up ever so slightly the Raspberry Pi Zero away from the very back. I think there's like 2mm clearance, and then there's a hole all the way through for some machine screws. So I've just used a couple of, I think, the M2.5 screws, and it's very light, very durable, single piece, so very nice and easy to print. So here's the design on its own. You can see there the little standoffs and the hole through them. Like I said, it's parametrically designed, so you can change the width and the height. Somebody was talking about the Badger 2040, and you could easily just change this to accommodate that and then print it out. Very easy to do that. Or even make it a bit larger for the Raspberry Pi 4, for example, or Raspberry Pi 3A, that kind of form factor. It's a single piece design that makes it really strong. If you drop it, it'll just bounce. It's pretty strong. It's printable in one session because it's a single piece, and no other assembly other than the screws are required. So ideal for most cases. So if you like what I do and you want to help me out, give this a like, this video. Comment, let me know if that's something that you'd be interested in. Would you use do you have any of the hats as well? Be really interested to know what hats you have for your Raspberry Pis. And make sure you hit the bell and subscribe to the channel as well. That just helps the channel grow. And we're seeing quite a strong growth actually on the channel, but I want that to continue. And I was out for a meal last night and somebody did a calculation to see just how many viewers I would actually have if everybody subscribed, and it's a crazy number. It's 500,000 people. So subscribe if you've not done that already. That will really help out the channel. And I do a new live stream every single Sunday at 7 o'clock UK time. So we're in British summertime at the moment, but I think after October we then go back to a GMT. So GMT +1 at the moment. So wherever you are in the world, you can sort of join in there. And if you want to join in the conversation at a deeper level, you can also go over to our Discord server. So if you go to action.smarsfan.com/join-discord, you can join in again for free on our Discord server, and I hang out there and talk to people occasionally through the week. Okay, so let's have a bit of a demonstration of the Enviro Hat. So let me have a look, and let me get up the let's go to me for a second, and I'll just get the right screen up. Okay, so over here I have a VNC session, and I've got a couple of things running. So this is the actual thing that's running at the moment, which is gathering all the data, and I'll show you that in Grafana, the actual output. So what we can see here, I think about every minute or so, it's taking a reading, it's taking a temperature, so it's saying 22 degrees there. I think that's probably about a degree higher than it actually is. It's measuring the pressure. I'm not sure if that's hectopascals or millibars or whatever. We have the humidity, that's like a percentage. We have oxidization, and then we have things like NH3, which is ammonia. We have lux, which is the light level, and then we have these three particulate sensors. So there's PM1, PM25, well it's actually 2.5, and PM10. And those readings will amass over time, a bit like rainfall, so you can then see what the quality of air is like and what particular grade of thing is causing the air pollution in your area. And then you get this serial number, and that's essentially just like a sensor serial number, so that if you have a few of these all putting readings out there, you can capture them and you can separate them out. So that's what that is. So that's running there. And what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to switch over to Grafana, and I will then show you what this looks like in my weather station. So over here, this air quality, you can see throughout the day, the quality of air has actually got better. There's been less particulates in the air, and we can actually see what the spread of these is. So dust and pollen and mold spores, all those kind of, I think they're probably larger particles. They're taking up the majority, so that yellow line at the very top there is the majority of the air pollution in our area. And I live in quite a rural area, so it's probably pollen related. Next up we can see the combustion particles, organic compounds, metals and so on. That's the next one, and again that's falling pretty consistently. And then the last one that we have there is the ultrafine particles, and you know they make up half of the volume of things that are in the air. I'm not sure what the UG stands for. Maybe somebody can actually explain that to me. It's probably some kind of like, is it micrograms? Is that what it is?
It's like
oh, is it a lambda thing? Yeah, micrograms per meter cubed. So really small amounts of stuff in the air, but there it is. I've also broken out the oxidization and ammonia as well. So you can see the oxidization is very low. The ammonia is 200. Again, I think that's micrograms. And we've got some other things like the pressure. So the pressure's been falling. It has been getting pretty windy outside. So with the weather station data, I can also, if I scroll up on that, I can see things like the wind speed that's been going on. That's pretty, it's not too bad. That we've got a bit of wind, but it's not like 5 meters per second, which is pretty pretty blustery. And then we've got some general temperature sensor readings and humidity sensor readings as well. So we have air conditioning in the summer house, and that's why it's not as humid as everywhere else. And then we've got some light levels, so it's getting quite dark outside at the moment. It's not very strong light level. And you can also see this other graph of the light levels there. And just where my face is there, if I scroll up, we have a whole bunch of different temperature sensors. And we can see that, like the loft, we can just see that temperature. It's been pretty consistent throughout the day. The blue one is the summer house itself, which is where I am. And I've had the air conditioning on and off throughout the day and had the door open and closed, so it's been all over the place. And then the general outside temperature, which is on one of the Philips Hue sensors that's just outside the door. You can see there that tracking as well. Other things we've got on there. So yeah, you can see the looks inside the summer house. I've got this on my desk. It's not particularly bright in this room when I was working through the day. Whereas you can see the light level just throughout the day has been pretty bright, and then it's been dropping down. And there's just like a graph of the wind speed, and we've got things like the dew point, how much dew is in the air, and I think that's about it. So yeah, that's the weather station data. So that's the result. That's what happens with all the data. So how does it get from that Enviro Hat running a Python script which is sending it to MQTT? How does it actually get from there to here? So let me show you that. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to open up Node-RED. We'll kind of work backwards. So if I go to the correct IP address, which is this one over here. Right, so I have a bunch of different nodes on Node-RED. So Node-RED is a piece of software that's designed for Internet of Things and combining things together. So you've got these things on the left-hand side that are called nodes, and you simply just drag these nodes onto this sort of palette, this surface here. They call that a flow, and the data will flow from the left-hand side to the right-hand side. So I've got one there for the weather station. I've got ones for some Philips Hue sensors as well, so I can take the sensors for light, the lux levels. We also have temperature as well. And what I then do is I put them into, if I just collapse that there, we can see I put them into a InfluxDB, which is a database which is running on my clustered Pi. And that's a place where we can store time series data. So anything that's like time data, we can store it optimized in there. Then we have the Grow Hat. So that's just got, you know, what the current water levels are on each one of the three sensors, just capturing that. And that's also going into InfluxDB, but into a Grow topic. And then the Enviro Hat. So I've got my Enviro Hat Plus here. So when we send data from the Python script to our MQTT broker, that will send that data out to anybody that's listening, that's that's subscribed. We publish that data. So we then put that through a little JSON thing that splits it out, makes it into a proper object in Node-RED. And then we then set the location to summer house. That's just like an extra tag that I add to the data to say this is the summer house. And then there's a little thing that's called array, and that's used for InfluxDB so that you can do things like split out the data. So if I want to split it by location, I just have to add an extra location thing in the array. And then I put all that into our weather InfluxDB. So if I go over here to the little bug thing there and press that, I can see all the Enviro Hat Plus data that's coming from that Python script. And we can see there we've got like temperature, pressure, humidity, oxidized, reduced, NH3, the ammonia, the light levels, and the 3 particulate sensor readings, so PM1, PM2.5 and PM10. And then I've added to it that location, which is the summer house, and I've also added in a sensor name just so I can see it. Rather than having that serial number, I've just called it Enviro Plus because I've only got the one. And each time it writes out that, we get a record in our InfluxDB, and then we can graph that data in Grafana just by creating some panels. I have done a show on exactly how to do that previously, so we'll not be covering that today. So that then takes us back to this node then. So what we need to do is just publish data using a Python script to an MQTT broker, and that's what the script does. So if I go back over to this computer here, so this is a Raspberry Pi, the Raspberry Pi Zero that's on the desk, which is just here. So this little thing here, it's connected to this local MQTT broker, and it's just sending the data there. So this is just a little Raspberry Pi Zero. I just turn it there, you can just see underneath, and that little sensor, the blue box there, is the particulate sensor. Now somebody was asking, is this thing noisy? You can't hear it at all. I didn't even know that it was actually switched on. It's that quiet. Let's put that back there. So yeah, it's very, very, very quiet. No concerns whatsoever there. So if I just break this for a second, if I just sort of do Control-C and stop that, so that's no longer sending data to our MQTT broker. And if I come over to this window here, this is, I've got the Pimoroni Python library installed. So let's have a look at some of the examples. So we have one which is all-in-one Enviro Mini. So let's run that one. All-in-one Enviro Mini. Do that. Let's see what happens there. There we go. So it's grabbing a load of, in fact, if we go to this one here, you can see there that it's actually grabbing the temperature. Again, it's probably about a degree higher than I would actually say in this room. And it changes colour depending on what the temperature is trending. So if it's trending green, you know, cooler, I think it goes greener. If it's trending hotter, it'll go redder. That's my understanding of how that particular thing works. You can see there, it's just taking loads of readings, it's spitting it out to the terminal, and then it's also updated in a little user interface on their display. So let's just do Control-C and stop that one. Let's have a look what else we have. So there's another one which is all-in-one no PM. So let's try running that one. So that's all-in-one PM. Like so. Oh, sorry, no PM. Let's try that. And looks very similar, to be honest. I can't see much difference on that one. Let's cancel that one then. And let's have a look what else we've got. So there's one that's called combined. Let's try running that one. So these are all the standard examples that come with the Enviro Plus hat. So combined, there we go. So that's now doing, oh, it's doing a slightly different display now. So on here, in sort of green colour, you can see there we've got temperature, we have pressure, we have humidity, and we have the PM sensors there. We've got the reduced and the NH3 and also the oxidization level. So we're getting the printout on the terminal, and we're also getting the nice display on the display hat itself. Okay, let's cancel that one. Let's have a look what else we have. So there's one that's called gas. So let's run that one, Python gas. See what happens now. So it's not updating the display, this one, but it is just taking the readings and spitting them out onto the terminal console there. So you can just see the different readings. Okay, let's have a look what else we have. We have LCD, so let's run LCD. Try that. There we go, bit of a Hello World program. Very, very simple example of just how to write text and in colours and so on. Let's have a look what else we have. So there is the light level, so let's run that one. So light.py. And that's just getting the lux levels and printing it to the screen. And it's also saying about the proximity. So if I bring my hand close to that, let's see if the proximity changes. Yes, you see there, if I put my finger right over that proximity there, we're getting really close and we're backing off. So we could use that to trigger something. If it goes over a certain threshold, we can make it make the screen come on, for example. So I'm looking at using that. So I'll probably look at that script, figure out how to get that to work. And Richard says there, it's a bit like the fridge door when you try and see if the fridge door light's on. We can do something similar. There we go. Okay, so let's go to the next script. So I'm going to save the MQTT one till last. Let's have a look at noise profile. I've not tried this one before, so let's try noise profile. See what that looks like. So there does appear to be a little line on this this graph here. Let's see if I can get that. It's very, very light blue. You can just about make it out there. So if I speak really loudly, does it go up at all? Not really, not too much, to be honest. So if I make some sounds near it, yeah, that's definitely making a much bigger spike there. If I do that, we can see there we've got some spikes of activity. So it changes colour depending on the loudness. which is pretty clever. Cool, let's have a look what else we have then. So notice when we cancel it, the screen just carries on displaying whatever it previously displayed. So that was noise profile. Let's try the noise amps one. I'm not sure what that one does. So noise amps at frequencies. So it says here retrieves a medium amplitude for 3 user specified ranges and plots them in blue, green and yellow on the environmental display. So let's just clap again. We can see there we're getting a bit of spikes, and we can see a bit of a spectrum analysis of what's going on there. Pretty clever. Do like that. And what else we have? Particulates. Let's run that one. So this is going to use the particulate sensor. So let's run that particulates. And this one is, so it's not doing anything on the display, but it is just taking the readings and putting them out to the terminal there. So we can see there it says ultrafine particles. It's got a value of 8. I'm not sure what these values mean as an absolute value, whether this is the micrograms per square meter, sorry, yep. So we can see there that that's changing. Now I was interested to see on the graph before, we had a barbecue for our evening meal, and I wanted to see did the smoke from the barbecue affect it, and we can definitely see that on the graph, so we'll have a look at that in a minute. We can see there the combustion particles, organic compounds and compounds and metals, that's got a value of 10. The dust, pollen and mold spores, it's got a value of 11, so that's the highest one. And then we have a couple of other ones, which is atmos environment. Not sure how they differ really from the other ones, they look exactly the same value. And then we have some other ones as well, which is about litres in the air. I think they're just different sized particles. So if you wanted to know about a specific size of particle, you could then drill it down by what's in there. Cool, so that's that one, that's the particulates one, and then weather and light. Let's try the weather one first. Weather.py. And that's just grabbing the simple values from the BME 280 chip, which is the temperature, the pressure and the humidity. So very straightforward, that one. And let's try the other one, which was weather and light. There we go, let's try that one. So it's probably going to be the same BME 280. Oh, we've got some really nice little graphics though, look at that. So that's like a little weather station. So we've got the little temperature there, we have the we've got bad humidity, we have brightness, and we have the studio lights here. So if I sort of cover my hand over that, you can see the brightness level change. And we have rain. So there we go. That's quite interesting. I didn't know you could link the barometric pressure to say definitely rain. I suppose that's what it's for, but I didn't know you could actually do that, so that's pretty cool. And then finally, the one that was actually running in the other window was just the MQTT broker one. So on this particular example, I've actually edited it and told it what my IP address for my local MQTT server is. So it's got that there, and then it's just spitting out that data. And that's where our Node-RED software, if I go back into Node-RED over here, and I go back full screen on that, we can then see the actual data that's coming in there. So just behind my face here is the latest reading that came through. So I just scroll, can I scroll that up? Let's try and expand this out, maybe if I move out the way. Yeah, you can see there, so summer house environment, and then we have all the different readings there as well. So that's pretty cool. And we can see that this will light up each time it gets a particular reading. And yeah, that's how that works. Cool. So I'm just going to go back over here to see if there's anything else I needed to cover off on that. I don't think so. I think that was everything there. If you've got any questions about that, just let me know and we can cover that off. And let's go back to our keynote. Okay, so that was the Enviro Plus demo. And I did say that we'd have a sneaky peek at the BurgerBot. So this is a work in progress. This is something I've put together this weekend, and it's for a secret project, but I wanted to show you the actual design of the robot. It's got some unusual features that I wanted to share with you. So it's got the usual rangefinder for detecting objects. We always like to include that. It's kind of a generic construction toy, compatible studs on the top, if you know what I mean. So yeah, they're legally different generic blocks, if you know what I mean. So that it has a space for a Raspberry Pi Zero or a Pico on top, so I will show you that in a second on the overhead camera. It has the great moon buggy wheels, and it uses the N20 micro metal gear motors, which are really strong, powerful motors. So I don't want to focus on those bits today or the board that runs this. It's more about the actual model of the robots. If I go to the overhead and I zoom out a little bit, here we have a example. This is the working copy, so it's not quite there yet. So if I just bring this, let's go to the overhead for a second. So one of the unusual features about this is it only has 2 wheels. So you can see there's these sort of balancing lugs, that's a technical term. So the idea is those things mean that you don't need to have like a caster wheel or anything like that. You can just print the single bottom piece, and it's got everything that you need there. The next piece then is the rangefinder at the front. So the idea is that this, I've not got the back support on there yet. I've not really got the tolerances right on this, so it's a little bit wonky. We can also see the Lego compatible, legally different blocks on there. And these holes here, there's like 4 holes there, and then there's another 4 over there. They are mounting holes. So if I get like a Raspberry Pi Pico, those holes that are in the mounting holes that are in here, if I just get my face out of the way, you can see there's like 4 mounting holes. They'll work perfectly with those holes there. And we can put like the usual tiny M25 machine screws in there. And the other thing we have is, if we have a Raspberry Pi Zero, I don't think I've got another spare one to hand there. I've just got one to hand there. So this is one that's just got a display on the back. Another nice display hat there. But them mounting holes there, they can go on the other 4 mounting holes. You can see that there's some slightly further apart ones. So one there, and then the same echoed on the other side. So I'll just power this on for a second. So if I just press the power button, we can see that this is powered up and running on its own power. There's like a little LED that's just lit up there. So I've not got any code loaded on this yet. That's the next bit. That's what this is a prototype for sort of testing out some stuff. And you might not have seen this particular thing before. This is a Pimoroni Pico LiPo. So it's a Raspberry Pi Pico that also has, as well as a USB-C connector on there, it can use a LiPo battery and manage the charging of that. So it means it's really, really easy to use. So to show you a bit of a closer look on that. So yeah, that's the Pico LiPo. There we go. And it's got like a power button as well as a USB button. So yeah, one of the things that was missing from the original Pico was a sort of on-off switch. So we can switch that on and off there. So I wanted to show you that as a work in progress. So what I will also do, I'll just I'll take off the battery first of all, just so I don't get any nasty shocks there. And I should just take off this, take the battery out of there. And I'm just going to take off that top board just so we can see how this works. So that means that can go through there nicely. It means we can have a look at that top board. So it's like a single board, 3mm thick. Get that so that you can see it a bit better there. And it's got the mounting holes and some little studs on top. And then underneath there we can see how this works. So we've got our rangefinder there. We've got our little motor holders. So these motor holders just screw in with a couple of I think they're M3 nuts, and then just an M3 nut underneath as well. And it means it's yeah, very easy to put together. And the idea of this is it sort of just fits in place as well. So there's some holes underneath there, and this little rangefinder piece, I show you that. So it's a big chunky thing, and it's got some lugs at the top and some lugs at the bottom. And then the rangefinder just sort of slots into place there. And because it's nice and snug, actually holds it in quite well. You can see there it's not falling out of the front. But it does mean that the board is quite universal. So this BurgerBot, almost like a bat symbol, isn't it? Very easy to put together. Just a couple of moon buggy wheels, some N20 motors, metal gear motors, and a couple of screws and nuts. And away we go. So I'll put that back over here, and I'll show you that in Fusion 360. Okay, so let me get myself sorted over here. I'm just going to go back to me there and then go over to Fusion. And let me just get to the correct view there. Okay, so this is the design. Let's change the view of that so it's the shaded view. There we go. And you can see the arrangement there of all the different pieces. So we have the, let's switch. I've also created a bun because it's like a burger. That wasn't really a serious piece, that was just for a bit of a joke. So let's turn off all the other bits and pieces, and we can start with the base. So there we go, we've got this base piece, and I've started out there with just a circle, and I've created some holes there. And this is based on the Explorer design, which I created quite a while ago, and I knew that the N20 motors would work perfectly on there. So yes, that's is that a bingo thing, Alex? How many things do I drop on stream? I don't even know what I drop. Oh, it's the battery. I always drop stuff. It's just I'm not concentrating on everything at the same time. So yeah, there's a space for the wheels there as well. So they're designed around these moon buggy wheels, which I absolutely love. And we've got some holes there. So these holes were originally I had the motors underneath. But I thought actually I can put the motors in between the kind of sandwich. So that's that piece. We then have the rangefinder holder. You can see it there. And then at the very back, we've got like a structural piece just so that that white thing can sort of sit on top. And it's held in place by both of those studs there. So then we have the top section itself, which we just had a look at there. And the lugs fit nicely into those holes. If we just leave it off for a second, we can then have a look at the other bits and pieces. So there's the rangefinder now going into place. Let's just spin that around there. We can then include things like the motor holders and the actual motors themselves that go in place like so. And what I usually do with these, I'll start out with a component. So these motors, I actually model them up myself in Fusion 360 because I thought this is something I'm going to use quite often. So I got the calipers out. And I spent an evening just measuring every single part of one of those motors and building it up a bit at a time. So I've got the original model of that I can bring in to any of the designs. So I simply go over to this sort of data panel and search for something that I want to bring in. So if I already created something like the motor holder, for example, I can just right click and say insert into current design, and then it just appears in here as like a linked object, like so. The rangefinder, I think I found that on GrabCAD. I don't think I designed that one myself. I haven't got that much time. So that's that bit. And then I will mirror them across so that we can have multiple pieces. And then they just appear in the browser over here. And then we have the moon buggy wheels. I did design these ones based on the original moon buggy wheels. So that took a while to put together. And then we've got that top section as well. So there we go. And if we want to top it off with the bun, we can do that too. I think it's missing some sesame seeds, and we had some suggestions on Twitter that it could be like LEDs or possibly generic construction toy compatible studs on there maybe instead. But yeah, you get the idea there. So it's a burger bot. These are quite a popular design of robot, these sort of circular with the wheels in the middle, and normally you would have a caster at the back. And you'd have to really carefully measure where the weight distribution is on these if you had a caster at the back, because it'll just flop forward if you don't do that. So you've got a heavy battery, that would be okay. And I thought, well, why don't we try 3D printing out some sort of stud things that stick down instead of a caster, so it's like a fixed caster, and they work just as well, so no problems there. So that's on Fusion 360. And the other thing I wanted to show you as well, so if I go back to me for a second and I just load up a browser, we can just go over to Kev's Robots, and I can show you the article that we have over here. So just while that's loading up on the stand. So if you want to grab a copy of the stand, you can go over to kevsrobots.com/blog and then 0-stand. Now I do think the what it doesn't show you on there is it's not HTTPS. So if you type in Kev's Robots and you end up at Clustered Pi, just take off the S. It's a certificate thing. I need to sort that out. I'm hosting that in this room on a bunch of Raspberry Pis on the Clustered Pi. But yeah, here we go. We can see you can download the STL file if you want from here. You can buy me a coffee if you want to help support the channel as well. And I've got some recommendations there about printing out the stand. So print it kind of face down. That's the easiest way to do it. You'll have less support material doing that. And there's also a link to a video this video. How meta is that? On the page, so you can click on that and you can see all about this particular stand. And then there's a couple of examples, pictures, so you can see there with a little particulate sensor underneath. We have the Grow Hat. I did a white one. That's the other 3D printing filament I've got across there. And then there's just a general picture of what it looks like in Fusion. So if you want to have a look at that, you can do. And just over on here, there's a few other bits and pieces as well. So we've got like the Bunny Bot, the Mechanism Robot, we've got Pico Cat. I think I need to optimize those JPEGs, they look a bit hefty. And we've got the original Pico Cat 2 there as well. So this is where I'm putting more and more of my content. There's also a link to SmarsFan. If you want to go out to SmarsFan, you can look at the old site that's got all the Smars stuff on there. And yeah, knock yourself out with all the different learning platforms and whatnot that's on there too. Cool, cool. So Richard was just asking there, Let's Encrypt for SSL, exactly that. Yeah, Let's Encrypt, that's the software I'll be using to run this. And if we look just, where are we? Just there, those flashing lights that are just there, that's the Raspberry Pi cluster that hosts both kevsrobots.com and clusteredpi.com as well. And Richard says, Grow Hat needs its own Twitter. We could do that. We could definitely do that using if this then that and MQTT. I'm sure we could link those couple of things together. Cool, great. So if you've been watching this on replay, this is the part of the video where I'll cut off the end and we'll have a Q&A. So if you're watching this on replay, this is the part of the video I will say thank you very much for watching, and I shall see you next time.